A millionaire woman pretended to be homeless, only one. Single mom helped, then everything changed. The morning sun cast long shadows across downtown Portland's bustling commercial district as Victoria Sterling adjusted the worn baseball cap over her disheveled brown hair. At 35, she was worth over $50 million, but today she looked nothing like the polished CEO who graced magazine covers. Her designer clothes had been replaced with threadbare jeans, a faded hoodie, and scuffed sneakers. Dark makeup under her eyes completed the transformation. Victoria had spent months planning this experiment. After losing her parents in a car accident the previous year, she'd begun questioning everything about her life. Their will had included a letter challenging her to find the real meaning of wealth before her 36th birthday, which was just 2 weeks away. The inheritance of their additional $20 million would only be released if she could prove she understood true generosity. "This is crazy," she whispered to herself, settling onto a cold bench outside Riverside Shopping Center. The morning rush was beginning, and hundreds of well-dressed professionals hurried past, their eyes carefully avoiding her gaze. For the first hour, Victoria watched as person after person walked by. Some looked at her with disgust, others with pity, but most simply pretended she didn't exist. A security guard approached twice, telling her to move along before she explained she was waiting for someone. Around 9:30 a.m., a young woman emerged from the grocery store, struggling with 2 heavy bags while holding the hand of a small boy, probably around 6 years old. Victoria noticed her immediately. She had the same rich brown hair as Victoria, though pulled back in a simple ponytail. Even in her obviously second-hand clothes, there was something striking about her natural beauty and the gentle way she spoke to her son. "Mommy, I'm hungry," the little boy said, tugging at his mother's jacket. "I know, sweetheart. We'll have breakfast as soon as we get home." "Just a few more blocks," the woman replied, her voice patient despite the obvious strain. As they walked past Victoria's bench, the woman suddenly stopped. She looked back at Victoria, her green eyes filled with concern rather than judgment. "Excuse me," she said softly, approaching the bench. "Are you okay? You look like you might be cold." Victoria was taken aback. In 3 hours, this was the first person to actually speak to her with kindness. I'm fine," she stammered, not quite ready to break character. The woman, who looked to be in her late 20s, set down her grocery bags and knelt to Victoria's eye level. Her son stayed close, watching with curious brown eyes that matched his mother's hair. "My name is Sarah Martinez," she said gently. "Look, I know it's not much, but I have an extra granola bar in my purse, and there's a coffee shop around the corner. Would you let me buy you something warm to drink?" Victoria felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering," Sarah smiled, and Victoria could see the genuine warmth in her expression. "Everyone deserves kindness." "Mommy helps people," the little boy added proudly. "She says that's what good people do." Sarah blushed slightly. "This is my son, Miguel. We were just heading home, but—" She paused, studying Victoria's face. "When did you last have a real meal?" The question hit Victoria harder than expected. Not because she was hungry, but because of the genuine concern in Sarah's voice. It's been a while," she answered honestly, thinking about how long it had been since anyone had cared about her well-being rather than her bank account. "That settles it," Sarah said, standing up with determination. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Nothing fancy, but they make great pancakes. Please, let me treat you to breakfast." "I can't let you spend your money on me," Victoria protested, noticing the careful way Sarah had counted her change at the store. "Money comes and goes," Sarah replied with a smile that transformed her entire face. "But we only get so many chances to help each other." As they walked toward the diner, Sarah chatted easily with Victoria, asking gentle questions about where she was from and how long she'd been in Portland. Victoria found herself creating a backstory about losing her job and apartment, surprised by how naturally the conversation flowed. "I work nights at the hospital," Sarah explained as they settled into a booth at Mel's Diner, a cozy local spot with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh coffee. "I'm studying to be a registered nurse, but it's taking longer than I hoped. Miguel and I were doing okay though, we have each other." Victoria watched as Sarah ordered carefully from the menu, clearly calculating costs in her head. She ordered the smallest breakfast for herself and asked for extra fruit for Miguel, but insisted Victoria order whatever she wanted. "Get the stack of pancakes," Sarah encouraged. "They're huge here, and you look like you need some good food in you." When their food arrived, Victoria was amazed by Sarah's natural way of including her in their conversation. She asked Miguel about school, listened patiently to his excited stories about his teacher, and made sure Victoria felt part of their little family unit. "Miguel wants to be a doctor when he grows up," Sarah said proudly, ruffling her son's hair. "He's already reading at a third-grade level, and he's only in first grade." "That's wonderful," Victoria said, genuinely impressed. "You must be very proud." "Every single day," Sarah beamed. "He's my whole world." As they finished eating, Victoria noticed Sarah discreetly checking her phone and frowning slightly at what appeared to be a text message. "Everything okay?" Victoria asked. Sarah quickly put her phone away and smiled. "Oh, just work stuff, nothing important." But Victoria had caught a glimpse of the message. "Rent payment overdue. Please contact the office immediately." The realization hit Victoria like a physical blow. This woman, who was clearly struggling to make ends meet, had just spent money she probably couldn't afford to feed a complete stranger. The generosity was so pure, so selfless, that Victoria felt tears threatening to spill. "Sarah," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "why did you help me? You don't even know me." Sarah looked surprised by the question. "Because you needed help," she said simply, "and because my mother always taught me that we're all just one bad day away from needing someone else's kindness." She reached across the table and gently squeezed Victoria's hand. "Besides, I can see it in your eyes. You're not just hungry for food. You're hungry for hope. I know what that feels like." Victoria had to excuse herself to the restroom, where she stared at her reflection in the mirror, overwhelmed by the profound kindness she'd just experienced. This wasn't charity or pity. This was pure human compassion from someone who had every reason to keep her resources for herself. When she returned to the table, Sarah was helping Miguel with a coloring book the waitress had brought over. "I need to ask you something," Victoria said, sitting back down. "What would you do if you suddenly had the chance to change your situation, to really change your life?" Sarah looked thoughtful. "I'd probably think it was too good to be true," she laughed softly. "But honestly, I'd want to finish nursing school so I could provide better for Miguel. Maybe get us a little house with a yard where he could play safely." She paused, looking wistful. "And I'd want to help other single mothers who are struggling the way I am. I know how lonely and scary it can be." Victoria felt her heart racing. She'd found exactly what her parents had challenged her to discover. Someone who understood. The true wealth wasn't about having more, but about giving more. "Sarah," she said carefully, "what if I told you that sometimes people aren't exactly who they seem to be?" Sarah tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" Victoria took a deep breath. The moment of truth was approaching, and she prayed that Sarah would understand. "What if I told you that your kindness today has changed everything?" Sarah studied Victoria's face, noticing something different in her eyes, a clarity and intensity that hadn't been there before. "I'm not sure I understand," Sarah said slowly, instinctively reaching for Miguel's hand. Victoria looked around the diner, then back at Sarah. "Can I ask you to trust me for just a few more minutes? There's something I need to show you, something that will explain everything." Despite her confusion, Sarah nodded. There was something about Victoria that made her feel safe, even in the midst of this strange conversation. "Miguel, sweetheart, can you keep coloring for a few minutes while Mommy talks with our new friend?" Sarah asked gently. "Okay, Mommy. I'm drawing a house with a big yard," Miguel said, focusing intently on his coloring book. Victoria's heart melted at the innocent comment, the same dream his mother had just shared. She reached into her worn hoodie pocket and pulled out her phone, scrolling to a particular photo. "Sarah, my real name is Victoria Sterling," she said quietly, turning the phone so Sarah could see the screen. Sarah's eyes widened as she looked at the image, a professional headshot of Victoria in an elegant business suit, standing in front of a massive corporate logo that read Sterling Enterprises. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered, looking back and forth between the photo and Victoria's face. "3 months ago, I inherited a significant amount of money from my parents," Victoria continued, her voice soft but steady. "But there was a condition. They wanted me to prove I understood the true meaning of generosity before I could access the inheritance." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "You mean you're not actually homeless?" "No," Victoria said, feeling the weight of her deception. "I'm actually worth over $50 million. But I needed to find someone who would show genuine kindness to a stranger without expecting anything in return. Someone who would help even when they were struggling themselves." For a long moment, Sarah sat in stunned silence. Then, to Victoria's surprise, she began to laugh. Not mockingly, but with a mixture of disbelief and wonder. $50 million, Sarah repeated, "and you chose to sit on a bench downtown looking for what exactly?" "For someone like you," Victoria said earnestly. "Sarah, do you realize what you did today? You spent money you couldn't afford to feed someone you'd never met. You took time away from your own child to show kindness to a stranger. You did all of this while dealing with your own serious financial problems." Sarah's face reddened. "You saw the text about the rent." "I did, and that makes what you did even more incredible." Victoria leaned forward. "In the 3 hours I sat on that bench, over 200 people walked past me. You were the only one who stopped, the only one who saw me as a human being worthy of compassion." Tears began forming in Sarah's eyes. I couldn't walk past someone who looked like they needed help. It's how I was raised. And that's exactly what my parents hoped I would understand," Victoria said, her own voice breaking with emotion. "They wanted me to learn that true wealth isn't about having money. It's about having the kind of heart that gives even when you have very little to give." Miguel looked up from his coloring. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Sarah wiped her eyes and smiled at her son. "Sometimes people cry when they're happy, sweetheart. These are happy tears." Victoria reached across the table and took both of Sarah's hands in hers. "Sarah Martinez, you've taught me more about generosity in one morning than I learned in 35 years of having everything I thought I wanted." "I still can't believe this is real," Sarah whispered. "It's real," Victoria assured her. "And now, I want to ask you something important. You told me that if you could change your situation, you'd want to finish nursing school and get a house with a yard for Miguel. You also said you'd want to help other single mothers who are struggling." Sarah nodded, still processing everything. "What if I told you that you could do all of those things?" Victoria continued. "What if I told you that your kindness today has earned you the chance to never worry about rent payments again?" "Victoria, I can't accept charity," Sarah said firmly, despite the tears streaming down her face. "This isn't charity," Victoria replied with a smile. "This is a partnership. You see, my parents' will included another provision. The person who taught me about true generosity would become my partner in deciding how to use their additional $20 million inheritance to help others. Sarah's mouth fell open. $20 million? To start with, yes. But here's what I'm proposing, Victoria said, pulling out a business card and pen. She wrote quickly on the back and handed it to Sarah. This is the address of my lawyer's office. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., if you're willing, we're going to set up a foundation together. The Martinez Sterling Foundation for Single Mothers. I don't know what to say, Sarah stammered. Say you'll let me help you the way you helped me today, Victoria said. Say you'll let me pay for you to finish nursing school in the best program in the state. Say you'll let me help you find that house with a yard where Miguel can play safely. Miguel looked up again, having heard his name. Are we getting a house with a yard? Sarah looked at her son, then back at Victoria, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. This is really happening, isn't it? Only if you want it to, Victoria said gently. Sarah, you gave me something today that money can't buy. You gave me hope in human kindness. You showed me that compassion isn't about having the resources to help. It's about having the heart to care. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she spoke. My mother used to say that sometimes angels come disguised as people who need our help. She said the real blessing isn't in being helped, it's in being given the opportunity to help someone else. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, Victoria said. She was. Sarah smiled through her tears. She died when Miguel was 2. I think she would have liked you. I would have liked to meet her, Victoria replied sincerely. Sarah looked down at the business card, then back at Victoria. If we do this foundation, I want to make sure we help families stay together. I want to provide not just financial support, but emotional support too. Single motherhood can be so isolating. That sounds perfect, Victoria said, her heart swelling with admiration for this incredible woman. Sarah, you've already shown me you have the heart of a true philanthropist. You understand that helping others isn't just about money. It's about connection, dignity, and hope. As they prepared to leave the diner, Victoria insisted on paying the check, despite Sarah's protests. This is the last time I'll pretend to be someone I'm not, Victoria said, as they stood outside the restaurant. From now on, I want to be honest about who I am and what I have. But more importantly, I want to learn from you about who I can become. Sarah hugged Victoria tightly. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for the money, but for showing me that kindness really can change everything. Thank you for showing me what true generosity looks like, Victoria replied. I have a feeling this is the beginning of something amazing. As they parted ways, Victoria heading back to her penthouse apartment and Sarah walking home with Miguel, both women felt a profound shift in their lives. Victoria had found her purpose and Sarah had found hope. The next day, at exactly 2 p.m., Sarah Martinez walked into the prestigious law offices of Davidson Stone & Associates, wearing her best dress and carrying Miguel's hand. Victoria was waiting for her, back in her elegant business attire, but with the same warm smile that Sarah remembered from the diner. Ready to change some lives? Victoria asked. Ready, Sarah replied with confidence. And as they sat down to begin the legal process of establishing their foundation, both women knew that a chance encounter on a downtown bench had become something much greater. A partnership built on compassion, a friendship forged in generosity, and a shared mission to prove that the greatest wealth comes from lifting others up. 6 months later, the Martinez Sterling Foundation had helped over 50 single mothers complete their education, find stable housing, and build better futures for their children. Sarah had graduated from nursing school with honors and was working in the pediatric ward of Portland General Hospital. Miguel was thriving in a new school near their beautiful house with the big yard he'd always dreamed of. And Victoria. She had finally understood what her parents meant about the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't about having millions of dollars. It was about having the heart to share whatever you have with those who need it most. The Foundation's motto, suggested by Sarah and enthusiastically approved by Victoria, was simple but profound. True wealth is measured not by what we keep, but by what we give. Every morning, Victoria woke up knowing that her parents would be proud. She had found her angel in the form of a struggling single mother who taught her that the richest people are those who give from the heart, regardless of how much they have in their bank account. And Sarah woke up every morning grateful for the reminder that sometimes, when we reach out to help others, we end up being the ones who are truly helped. Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.